Kathy Arbaugh called me this morning and informed me that Pastor Sam would unexpectedly be absent. This message popped into my mind within minutes. And while I spend 5 days a week teaching history to 8th grade students, I want to assure you that I don't normally come up with ideas for lessons that quickly. In fact, I have learned as an 8th grade teacher to survive, things have to be meticulously planned. For instance, we could talk about the Quaker Baptist pacifist sect that was prominent in our country in the 1800s, but I know not to make that last word sect plural and put an S on the end of it, because all the 8th graders will start laughing and not listen to what I have to say anymore. And if I talk about Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant did their duty, again, 8th graders, half of them are still kids, and they'll all take issue with that word and start laughing. So I learned to be very careful in what I say. But for this message this morning, I have already given thanks to God for inspiring me with the following words. And I want you to remember, Pentecost equals fire. We heard reference to that several times already. So, what a roller coaster of a world that we live in today. Using our time zone, in 24 hours, between 8:30 a.m. on Friday and 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, our nation suffered yet another tragic school shooting, and the world's attention turned to Windsor Castle in the United Kingdom for the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. As crazy as this sounds, the solution to the tragedy in Texas was heard in the message given in Windsor Castle. Now, the tragedy of the mass murder in Texas has been an enormous shock to all of us. Once again, we're all stunned. Once again, we are grieving for the families of the students and teachers who have been killed and wounded. This sense of tragedy overwhelms us all. We cannot fathom their pain and suffering and immeasurable grief in the loss of so many children who were young adults. We grieve for them all. So I selected 3 passages from the Bible as the basis for this sermon today. In Genesis 6, verse 11, and that's the story of Noah, it says, "The earth was corrupt in the eyes of God and was full of violence." Proverbs 24, verse 6 says, "Their hearts plot violence and their lips talk about making trouble." Finally, Psalm 140, verse 1, "Rescue me, O Lord, from evil men. Protect me from men of violence." Now, a prayer that all peaceful people have prayed is this: "O Lord God, protect us from evil men, protect us from men of violence." That prayer is universal. So, according to the Washington Post, Brittany Martin, the author, and other writers helping, Santa Fe, Texas. This time, it happened during first period. The day after, a student went on a student rampage at a Texas high school. A Houston area community grappled with a horrific reality that is unfolded in so many other places across the nation. On Friday morning, a 17-year-old student armed with a shotgun and a pistol stormed Santa Fe High School about 30 miles southeast of Houston and opened fire in an art class, officials said. The gunman killed 10 people, wounded 10 others, including a school resource officer who was left in critical conditions, police said, before surrendering to the officers who confronted him. Of those killed, 8 were students, 2 were teachers, and Santa Fe Independent School District Superintendent Leigh Wall said in a letter to parents, "Our community has suffered a terrible tragedy. We are all feeling the overwhelming grief of this horrific event." Santa Fe High School became the latest scene of carnage in what has become a national epidemic of mass shootings. For the second time in the past 3 months, the victims were children and their teachers. This tragedy prompted an outpouring of grief and outrage, a candlelight vigil, statements of sympathy and anger from elected officials, heartrending posts from relatives of the deceased, as well as for some, A quiet resignation that the previously unthinkable had morphed into inevitability. And people said, we even have a ritual for a school shooting that our nation goes through. It's happened so many times. It's been happening everywhere, once Santa Fe student Paige Curry said, with a shrug after the shooting. I've always kind of felt like eventually it was going to happen here too. At Santa Fe High School, it happened with less than 2 weeks to go before the end of the school year. A trench coat-clad gunman, police identified the suspect as student Demetrius Pagodas, came into the first art classroom and began shooting. He knew students were hiding in the supply closet. He'd probably been a part of the lockdown drills that many schools do now. He said surprise and then started shooting, and he killed 1 or 2 people. And he shot a girl in the leg in the closet. He shot through the window. We blocked the doors with ceramic makers, and he kept on trying to get in, and he kept on shooting inside the closet. She called police 3 times over the course of 30 terrifying minutes. The police dispatcher told her to be quiet and assured her that help was on the way. The gunman kept shooting, cursing, and yelling. He shot a police officer who approached, then engaged other officers in discussion, finally offering to surrender. He kept saying, if I come out, don't shoot me. They didn't shoot him, they just put him in handcuffs. Pagodas, other students described him as a quiet loner. He's being held without bond in Texas, charged with capital murder and aggravated assault on a police officer. It was unclear what motivated the attack, as authorities said it came without any obvious warning and no history in his case. So as I mentioned, 10 people were killed. Among those who perished, a teacher who had hoped to retire to be a full-time grandmother, an exchange student from Pakistan who was planning to return home in a few weeks, a football player on the high school team. 8 of the dead were students consisting of 4 boys and 4 girls, and the other 2 teachers. Now, I wrote this after the shooting in Florida earlier this year when I had somebody ask me to write my reflections. So I'm very careful about saying this point because in today's society, I can see my words being twisted as something concerning blaming the victims, which I absolutely do not mean. After the Florida shooting, I heard statements from some of the surviving students. The problem of school shooting is something you adults and politicians need to fix. I have a real problem with that mentality. I'm really struggling with it. The school shootings have all been perpetuated by outsiders. These students are outcasts. These students have been bullied. My question, is it the teachers who made them feel like outcasts? Is it the principals and the administrators who made them feel like outcasts? Is it the politicians who made them feel like outcasts? No. The obvious answer is that it's the other students who made them feel this way, and that students should put their behavior on the front line of finding the solution to this. You know, I call it the food chain, and I hate to see it. And I remember fitting into what I perceived as being in the lower part of the food chain when I was in school. Starting with the high society members of the class, a snippy remark is made. Now, the student on the receiving end does not immediately do something hurtful to the students that don't measure up to the standard. Not to the students that are at the bottom of the pack, because the upper level students don't have the time to be bothered with that. Things keep rolling downhill. So from one student to a student that's slightly below them. And by the time it gets to the bottom, it is unbearable for the blank student. Now you fill in the blank. Retarded, biracial, fat, gay, adopted, poverty-stricken, glasses, abused, whatever it might be. When asked by the principal if this goes on in Mr. Leach's room, the answer from the student was, no, things are pretty well tamped down in there. But I know it still goes on, with looks, paper wads thrown when I'm not looking, things said in a low voice because the students have figured out my hearing's pretty bad from the years I was in the artillery. So, while I exert some control by running a well-disciplined classroom, students know what they can get away with and where. Okay? The improper behavior oftentimes goes on in the hallways, the locker rooms, and certain teachers' rooms, basically places where they know they can get away with it. Additionally, nowadays, social media provides a way that this can go on in an even worse anonymous manner during non-school hours that may have once been a respite for the picked-on students. Now, I know that there's a fallacy to my idea that students can solve this problem by being nicer to each other. We have students, and there are students all across our nation, who come to school from horrific home lives. Perhaps, in their mind, picking on a student who is below them in the food chain is the only thing that they can do in an entire day to give them a small boost in their otherwise miserable existence. So, how can we expect a student who deals with that kind of life at home to come to school and all of a sudden be nice to everyone? But this is where it starts. So how does all that relate to yesterday's royal wedding? One of the iconic pieces of that event was the address by Bishop Michael Bruce Curry of the Episcopal Church here in the United States. Many Americans, myself included, found some humor in how the British royalty, very stuffy, reacted to an African-American preacher in Windsor Castle preaching in that style that we all have come to love as a social black preacher can deliver. So, I want to have you listen to part of his message, but I will tell you I won't be anywhere near as skillful an orator as he. But the words are what contain the message. From the Song of Solomon in the Bible, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, passion as fierce as the grave, its flashes of fire, a raging flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it out. The late Dr. Martin Luther King once said, and I quote, "We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love, and when we do that, we will make of this old world a new world. For love is the only way." There's power in love. Don't underestimate it. Don't even over-sentimentalize it. There's power in love. If you don't believe me, think about the first time when you fell in love. The whole world seemed to center around you and your beloved. Yes, there's power in love. And I'm talking about some power, some real power to change the world. If you don't believe me, well, there were some old slaves in America's antebellum South who explained the dynamic power of love and why it has the power to transform. They explained it this way. They sang a spiritual that's in our hymnal, even in the midst of their captivity. And it's the one that says, there is a balm in Gilead, a healing balm, something that can make things right. There's a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. One of the stanzas actually explains why. They said, if you cannot preach like Peter and you cannot pray like Paul, you can just tell the love of Jesus how he died to save us all. Oh, that's a balm in Gilead. This way of love is the way of life. They got it. He died to save us all. He didn't die for anything he could get out of it. Jesus did not get an honorary doctorate for dying. He wasn't getting anything out of it. He gave up his life. He sacrificed his life for the good of the others, for the good of the other, and for the well-being of the world. For us, that's what love is. Love is not selfish and self-centered. Love can be sacrificial, and in so doing, becomes redemptive. And that way of unselfish, sacrificial, redemptive love changes lives. And it can change this world. If you don't believe me, just stop and think or imagine. Think and imagine. Well, think and imagine a world where love is the way. Imagine our homes and families when love is the way. Imagine neighborhoods and communities where love is the way. Imagine governments and nations where love is the way. Imagine business and commerce when love is the way. Imagine this tired old world when love is the way. Unselfish, sacrificial, redemptive. When love is the way, then no child will go to bed hungry in this world ever again. When love is the way, we will let justice roll down like a mighty stream and righteousness like an ever-flowing brook. When love is the way, poverty will become history. When love is the way, the earth will be a sanctuary. When love is the way, we will lay down our swords and shields down by the riverside to study war no more. When love is the way, there's plenty good room for all of God's children. Because when love is the way, we actually treat each other, well, like we are actually family. When love is the way, we know that God is the source of us all, and we are brothers and sisters, children of God. So my brothers and sisters, that's a new heaven, a new earth, a new world, a new human family. And let me tell you something, old Solomon was right in the Old Testament. That's fire. That's Pentecostal fire. And Dr. King was right. We must discover love, the redemptive power of love. And when we do that, we will make of this old world a new world. So my brothers, my sisters, God love you all. God bless you, and may God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. Thank you.